Hello folks, J. William Rogers here, and welcome to another episode of Fascinating World. Wow, episode 7 already. I remember the good old days, back at episode 1. It was a simpler time then, a more innocent time.
Before the dark times, before the Empire.
All right, let's say the Fascinating World creed together. We live in a fascinating world, and we are a part of it. The world is filled with so many amazing and awe-inspiring things, but we can miss them if we don't look for them. By searching for the good and the beautiful, the exciting and inspiring things going on in the world, we can reshape the lens through which we see the world itself, and we can learn to live in a sense of wonder and awe over this incredible world we live in. We live in a fascinating world, and we are a part of it. Today, we resolve to see the wonder in being alive and commit to adding to it wherever we can. Okay, well, today we're going to talk about honestly, I don't know what we're going to talk about exactly. I've been pretty busy this week, and I'm leaving on a trip tomorrow for Chicago tomorrow morning. And I haven't had a whole lot of time to think about this week's episode. It's kind of caught up with me. But I think this is the reality of what the channel is going to be like. Sometimes it'll be well thought out and produced, and other times it'll just be me talking about stuff that has happened in the last week. Now, there were some interesting things that happened this last week. First of all, I got Abraham Lincoln's birthplace wrong in the last episode. So while he spent most of his career in Illinois and the state motto is the land of Lincoln, he was actually born in Hodgeville, Kentucky. And he didn't move to Illinois until he was 21. Now, I'm still claiming him for the state, however. Kudos to my historical fact checker friend, J. Scott Phillips, for keeping me accurate. So if I have to replace him as a great person who was born in the state, I'll say Ronald Reagan then. He was born in Dixon, Illinois. Actual fun fact, my grandfather, my dad's dad, went to school with Ronald Reagan, and we have pictures of the two of them in the same pictures together. I'll dig those up sometime and show them to you. They're sort of funny. But the other interesting thing is I saw 2 really good movies this week. The first was Sound of Freedom, and the second was Mission Impossible: Dead Reckoning Part 1. Sound of Freedom is an incredible true story about a Homeland Security officer who ends up rescuing children from a trafficking ring. There are amazing performances by the entire cast, and it's an edge-of-your-seat thriller because the infiltration and extraction scenes happen just like they play out in the movie. Jim Caviezel's great, but there are strong performances all around, and the 2 main kids in the film are incredibly good. Incredibly good. Fantastic directing from Alejandro Monteverde, and excellent cinematography by Gorka Gomez and Andrew, I think it's Aek. A-E-C is how it's spelled. I'm not sure I'm saying it right. Funny thing, I'm a little foggy about the details here, but ironically, this movie was originally owned by 20th Century Fox, which then became the property of Disney when they purchased Fox. They decided not to do the movie, so Angel Studios bought the rights, and then they made it. Now, it's outperforming Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny while playing on far fewer screens. So, take that. The movie has been taking a lot of flack from the mainstream media because apparently, surprise, surprise, Jim Caviezel's political views don't line up with theirs, and Hollywood in general also seems to think the issue of child trafficking isn't that big of a thing. Oh well. Sound of Freedom is laughing all the way to the bank on this one. If you haven't seen it, I strongly recommend it. Don't let the subject matter keep you away. It's handled expertly, with just enough to get you to understand the reality and magnitude of the problem without any actual explicit material. And that's not an easy task, but they do it really, really well. I personally think it's a film that, despite the difficult subject matter, needs to be seen because of the difficult subject matter. We need to have our beautiful cages rattled every now and again to engage us in the really important stuff we need to address. And this issue of slavery in the world, and particularly child slavery, is a huge business. And because we don't want to look at it, it's allowed to continue. So check the movie out and tell me I'm wrong. I'll pay for your ticket if you think I am. The second movie I saw this week was the new Mission Impossible movie. Much lighter subject than the first movie, although the plot of that movie is actually an AI program that has gone rogue and threatens to take over the world. So this is yet again another solid entry in the Mission Impossible franchise. Great locations, great action scenes, awesome cast, and a fun story full of twists and turns. While I was watching it, the one thing that occurred to me was that I was tense and uneasy during all of the action scenes. And I was comparing and contrasting that to my mental state when I was watching Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which I thought was fun to watch and experience, but none of the action scenes made me tense at all, because I could tell it was so obviously all done with CG. Now, Mission Impossible relies heavily on CG as well, but it's the way they use it that makes all the difference. So the big difference between the two movies is, in one movie, CG is used to make the action scenes more intense, and in the other movie, the action scenes are CG. You see, in the Indiana Jones movie, a lot of what you're seeing in those action scenes is almost completely CG. In the Mission Impossible movie, CG was used maybe to erase safety wires and replace some ramps with a similarly shaped outcropping of a mountain. But at the end of it all, Tom Cruise still drove a motorcycle at high speed off of the side of a mountain, free-falling into a gorge and then pulling a parachute. And apparently he did that stunt 6 times on the actual first day of principal photography, and countless other variations of it as he built up to the real thing. They're really driving those cars fast through the streets of Italy. Now, the roads are closed and it's a controlled environment, but when they do it with the real thing, you can just feel it. Everything has the right weight to it. The lighting is all correct, and the actors look a little genuinely scared while performing the stunts. Now, I'm sure some of that is acting, but it doesn't look like all of it is. Anyway, just 2 different types of movies, but even when I saw the original Raiders of the Lost Ark, a lot of those action scenes were done practically too. But when your star actor is in his 80s, I guess you have little choice. Anyway, I love the Mission Impossible movie. The whole cast is there, along with some characters from back in the earlier films. Haley Atwell does an amazing job, and I swear it was a day after I saw the film before I realized that the crazy female assassin that Tom Cruise gets in a big fight with is played by the same actor who plays Mantis in Guardians of the Galaxy. She's really great in this. One of the things the Mission Impossible series does so well is to create these ridiculous situations and somehow get you to believe in them anyway. The ending scene on the train is a great example of this, and it's fantastic. And as an additional crossover, it was shot on the same section of railway that the train scene at the beginning of Dial of Destiny was shot on. I thought that was a cool little piece of trivia. The last thing this week for me was watching a SpaceX launch. Now, I watch these pretty regularly because they happen all the time now, but I'm always amazed when I watch it. By making the booster reusable when it flies back and lands on its own near the launch pad or out at sea on one of their hilariously named drone ships, like Of Course I Still Love You, SpaceX has effectively cut the cost of launches by, I think, something like 2/3. And it's a much more powerful rocket than its predecessors that could only fly once, so it can carry more payload to orbit. The deeper I go down the SpaceX rabbit hole, the more amazed I am at what they're doing over there. I'll get into this more when I fully do my deep dive on Elon Musk, but every time I watch one of these launches, I'm just amazed. Seeing these boosters come back and land themselves while literally almost running their propellant tanks dry is some kind of sci-fi level stuff. And the next level is Starship, and that's coming up real soon. Starship is their fully reusable orbital rocket that's going to take us back to the moon and eventually Mars, and is going to revolutionize the whole field of what's possible with a rocket all over again. So, yeah, that was my week. By the time you see this on Monday, I will have flown to Chicago, eaten some delicious deep dish pizza, seen a Cubs game at Wrigley Field with my mom and stepdad, and I'll be on my way to spending the day riding around in the neighborhood I grew up in, just north of Chicago. I'm excited to share that episode with you from that trip, but you're going to have to wait until next Monday for that. So, have a great week.